In a Maryland federal courtroom, the fate of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran migrant, has become a flashpoint in the debate over immigration, due process, and human rights. His story is not just a legal battle, it's a human drama unfolding at the intersection of law, politics, and personal struggle. The courtroom, usually a place of quiet deliberation, is now the stage for a case that has drawn the attention of activists, legal scholars, and government officials alike. For Abrego Garcia, every hearing is a reminder of the uncertainty that shadows his future. His case is not just about one man's fight to stay in the U.S. It's a test of the limits of government power and the rights of those caught in the immigration system. The stakes are high, not only for him, but for thousands of others whose lives hang in the balance. The U.S. government, under the Trump administration, is determined to remove him, while his lawyers argue the government's actions are both legally and morally questionable. The legal teams on both sides have spent months poring over documents, preparing arguments, and anticipating every possible outcome. Each side knows that the implications of this case could ripple far beyond the walls of this courthouse. The central question: can the government detain someone indefinitely when no country will accept him? This dilemma exposes the gray areas in immigration law, where policy, international relations, and human rights collide. It's a question that challenges the very foundation of American justice and the values the country claims to uphold. After failed attempts to deport him to multiple countries, Abrego Garcia's case now rests with Judge Paula Sinis in Maryland. She must weigh not only the letter of the law, but also the broader consequences of her decision. The eyes of the nation, and indeed the world, are on her as she considers the arguments and the evidence. This hearing is the culmination of a 9-month legal battle, with the outcome poised to set a precedent for future cases. The tension in the courtroom is palpable, as both sides await a decision that could change the course of immigration law in America. For legal observers, this is a defining moment, a case that will be studied and debated for years to come. For Abrego Garcia, this is about more than legal principles. It's about his life after years in detention. The emotional toll is evident in his face, and in the anxious glances of his family and supporters. Every day spent in limbo is a day of hope and fear, as he waits to learn whether he will be granted a chance at freedom or forced to remain in legal purgatory. Judge Sinis's ruling will be a landmark moment in American immigration law. Her decision will not only determine Abrego Garcia's fate, but will also send a powerful message about the nation's commitment to justice, due process, and the rights of the most vulnerable. The outcome of this case will echo far beyond this courtroom, shaping the future for countless others who find themselves at the mercy of an uncertain system. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's legal journey has spanned years and continents, a saga marked by relentless uncertainty and bureaucratic twists. What began as a straightforward criminal case soon spiraled into a labyrinthine immigration battle, stretching across borders and testing the limits of international law. His story is not just about one man's fate, but about the complex machinery of immigration enforcement and the human cost of its failures. The case started in a local courthouse, but quickly escalated, drawing in federal agencies and international governments. For years, the U.S. government has tried to deport Abrego Garcia, but every attempt has been met with a new obstacle. No country has agreed to accept him, leaving him in a legal limbo that seems to have no end. After El Salvador refused to take him back, officials scrambled to find alternatives, reaching out to countries as far-flung as Eswatini, Uganda, Ghana, and most recently, Liberia. Each time, diplomatic negotiations broke down or were outright rejected, and each time, Abrego Garcia remained in detention. These repeated setbacks have left Abrego Garcia in prolonged detention, caught in a cycle of hope and disappointment. His case, once a routine matter, has now become a test of the legal system's ability to resolve the unresolvable. In August 2025, the Trump administration's plan to deport him to Liberia was blocked by Judge Sinis, who questioned the validity of the government's diplomatic assurances. The judge's skepticism reflected growing concerns about the reliability of such promises and the real risks faced by deportees. Abrego Garcia's lawyers argue that this endless cycle of failed deportations is proof that his removal is not reasonably foreseeable. They say his continued detention violates constitutional protections, and that the government's inability to find a solution only strengthens their case. The government, however, remains determined, insisting that another solution is just around the corner. Their persistence has only highlighted the immense legal and logistical hurdles in cases like this, where international cooperation is uncertain and the stakes are deeply personal. Meanwhile, Abrego Garcia waits in custody, his days marked by anxiety and anticipation. Every failed deportation attempt adds to the uncertainty, and every court date brings a mix of hope and dread. Each failed attempt to remove him has become another building block in his legal team's argument for release. Small victories in court have kept his hopes alive, even as the process drags on. The case has become a marathon, testing the endurance of everyone involved. After years of setbacks and legal wrangling, the finish line finally seems to be in sight, but the outcome is far from certain. Now, everything depends on Judge Zinnes's forthcoming ruling, a decision that could set a precedent for others trapped in similar legal limbo, and finally determine whether Kilmar Abrego Garcia will walk free or remain in detention. The November hearing pitted two starkly opposing narratives. The Department of Justice insists it has the authority to detain and deport Abrego Garcia, arguing that logistical delays don't undermine the legality of his removal order. They claim Liberia has agreed to accept him and ask the court to let them proceed. Abrego Garcia's lawyers counter that the government lacks a valid removal order and is trying to circumvent due process by sending him to countries with no real connection to him. They argue his continued detention violates Supreme Court precedent against indefinite confinement. The defense also questions the credibility of the government's assurances from Liberia. At stake is whether the government's actions are lawful or a case of overreach. The outcome will define the boundaries of executive power in immigration enforcement. Judge Paula Zinnes's skepticism was on full display during the hearing. She challenged the government's evidence, famously telling the DOJ, "You can't fake it till you make it." After reviewing their supposed removal order, Judge Zinnes demanded concrete proof, not vague explanations or word salad affidavits. She pressed for details on why Costa Rica was no longer an option and questioned the temporary nature of Liberia's assurances. Her insistence on verifiable facts underscored her commitment to due process. The judge made it clear, the burden of proof was on the government. By closing the record, she signaled that the time for arguments was over. Her meticulous approach ensures her ruling will rest on solid legal ground. The government's case hinges on a single document, a valid final order of removal. Without it, any attempt to deport Abrego Garcia is legally baseless. The DOJ claims a 2019 immigration judge's ruling serves as this order, even though it only barred removal to El Salvador. Judge Zinnes was deeply skeptical, noting the document doesn't resemble a standard removal order. Legal orders must be clear and explicit, especially when someone's liberty is at stake. If the judge finds no valid order exists, the government's case could collapse. Abrego Garcia could be deemed unlawfully detained for months or years. The absence of this document could unravel the entire case. The Supreme Court's 2001 Zedvitas v. Davis decision looms large over this case. It established that the government cannot detain migrants indefinitely if their removal isn't reasonably foreseeable. Abrego Garcia's lawyers argue his years in detention, after failed deportation attempts, are exactly what Zedvitas sought to prevent. The government counters that ongoing negotiations with Liberia mean his removal is still possible. The legal battle hinges on whether Judge Zinnes sees the Liberia plan as realistic or just another dead end. If she finds removal is not foreseeable, she could order his release. Zedvitas ensures that detention doesn't become a life sentence. The judge's interpretation of this precedent will be decisive. The case tests the limits of government power to detain. Beyond immigration, Abrego Garcia faces a separate criminal case in Tennessee. His lawyers allege the prosecution is vindictive, arguing the government is targeting him for exercising his rights. If released, he could live with his brother and participate fully in his criminal defense. His presence in court could shift the dynamics of the case, strengthening his defense. The government may see continued detention as leverage. Judge Zinnes's decision will ripple into the criminal case, affecting his ability to fight those charges. The two cases are legally distinct, but deeply intertwined. With the hearing over, Judge Zinnes now holds Abrego Garcia's fate. She could rule the government lacks a valid removal order, ordering his immediate release. Alternatively, she might find the order valid but still release him under the Zedvitas precedent, given the failed deportation attempts. The least likely outcome is a full win for the government, given the judge's skepticism. Her decision will set a precedent for similar cases. The stage is set for a ruling that could challenge the government's approach to indefinite detention. All eyes are on Judge Sinis as she prepares to issue her decision. The outcome will have lasting implications for immigration law. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case is more than one man's struggle. It's a test of the American legal system, and a reflection of the values that underpin our democracy. His fight is emblematic of the challenges faced by thousands of immigrants who find themselves caught in a complex web of laws, policies, and procedures that can sometimes seem insurmountable. The ruling in this case will send a powerful message about the limits of government power and the fundamental importance of due process. It will clarify whether the government can detain individuals indefinitely without clear justification, or if the Constitution's promise of liberty and justice truly extends to everyone, regardless of immigration status. A decision in Garcia's favor would reaffirm that indefinite detention is unconstitutional, reinforcing the idea that the government must follow transparent and fair legal procedures. It would set a precedent that protects not only immigrants, but all individuals from potential government overreach. Judge Sinis's insistence on proper documentation and adherence to legal standards could become a benchmark for future cases, guiding other judges and courts in similar situations. This approach emphasizes the need for careful judicial review and the protection of individual rights. The case highlights the urgent need for accountability and robust judicial oversight in immigration enforcement. It brings attention to the real human impact of legal decisions and the importance of checks and balances in our system. If the court rules in favor of Garcia, it could empower countless others in similar situations to challenge their detention and seek justice. It would send a signal that the courts are willing to stand up for the rights of the vulnerable and hold the government accountable. As we await the decision, this case stands as a defining moment in the ongoing struggle to balance national security, immigration enforcement, and justice. It forces us to confront difficult questions about who we are as a nation and what kind of legal protections we are willing to guarantee. The outcome will echo far beyond the Maryland courtroom, shaping the future of immigration law and human rights in America for years to come. It will influence not only legal precedent, but also the lives of families, communities, and the very fabric of our society.